Welcome. I'm Melissa Sangranis. I'm the Associate Director for the Archdiocese Center for Family Care. And we're so happy you're here to join us today. We'll be hearing the workshop presented today will be Domestic Violence, Identifying and Responding to Intimate Partner Abuse. And we have with us Paulette Yanakopoulos, who is the Director of Social Work for the National Philoptochos, and Father Chrysostom Gilbert was the proestameno at the Annunciation Greek Orthodox Church in New York City. Before we get started, just a few housekeeping notes I want to just go over. This is being recorded, and you will be able to watch it later. If there's someone that you want to share this with that wasn't able to be here, it'll be put up about a week after this live broadcast. And we will let you know via email if you're on our listserv or via our Facebook page once it is indeed up. We are really, really grateful to Leadership 100 for their continuous support and faithful stewards such as you that allow us to offer these programs for free to our archdiocese and beyond. So thank you very much to all of you for that. And we want to let you know if you signed up, those of you that signed up for this workshop, the PowerPoint for this workshop has been emailed to you. It should be in your email box now, and you can access it after, before, during the presentation right now. And the last thing I wanted to make mention of as we get started, a lot of different people are attending this workshop, pastoral care workers, clergy, and some of you that may be attending may be people who are facing issues in your own life of abuse. We want to let you know that if you are facing issues of abuse, that the hotline number, which will be shown throughout this presentation periodically, is 1-800-799-SAFE, S-A-F-E. If you're experiencing intimate partner abuse, please reach out to that number, or if you're in danger, reach out and call 911. And with that, we'd like to turn this over to Father Chrysostom and Paulette. Thank you both for being here.
Thank you, Melissa. We're honored that you invited us to speak. This is a very important topic. It's also a very difficult topic. I want to first start by saying that many people think that domestic violence is a family problem. It is not. It is not a family problem. It is not a normal marital conflict. And nor is it something that just happens to members of the National Football League. It's something that happens to everybody, or it could happen to everybody. The main thing that we hope that you get out of this presentation today is that as a community, we should not remain silent. Whether we are being victimized, whether we know someone who is being abused, or whether we would like to know more about the topic, it is important for us to reach out to local organizations and to reach out to members of our community who may be experiencing the problem. The way we're organizing today's presentation is first we're going to give an overview of domestic violence. We then will go into Orthodox Christian perspectives of domestic violence. And then the third section of our presentation will talk about what we can do as an Orthodox Christian community. I'd like to start by saying what a domestic violence victim looks like. Oh, first I should say, though, that because the vast majority of victims are women, we will be referring to victims as women and abusers as men. That is not to say that men are not victims, they are. However, when 85% of the reported victims of abuse are women, we will, to simplify our own presentations, refer to victims as women. So what does a victim look like? A victim is short, she is tall, she is old, she is young, she has brown hair, she has blonde hair, she has red hair, she is thin, she is chubby. I think you get the point. A victim can be anybody. These characteristics are also what a batterer looks like. A batterer could be an immigrant, he could be a college graduate, he could be a high school dropout, he could be a medical doctor, a construction worker, a CEO, anything. Between 2001 and 2012, almost 6,500 American troops were killed in Iraq and Afghanistan. During that same period, nearly 12,000 women were killed by current or former intimate partners. I think that gives you an idea of how horrible this situation is. Every day, between 3 and 4 women are killed by a current or former partner. When there is a firearm in the home, it increases the likelihood that a woman will be killed by 800%. We're not making any statements about Second Amendment rights. We're just stating a fact that when there is a firearm in the home, the likelihood that a woman will be killed is increased by 800%. A woman who leaves her abusive partner is 70 times more likely to be killed shortly after she leaves the relationship. 10% of high school students and 22% of college students report having experienced physical violence in one or more dating relationship. So again, that says to us it is not a matter of age. Domestic violence is a systematic pattern of controlling, coercive, intentional, and violent behaviors. Domestic violence is intended to punish, to abuse, to gain and maintain control of the victim. With time, the abuse increases and intensifies. It's important to understand that domestic violence is a choice. It is learned, and it is about power control. What it is not anger. It is not about substance abuse. It is not about mental illness, genetics, stress, or relationship issues. Let's look at some of the forms of abuse. We're going to go over different ways that offenders abuse their partners. And it's important to understand that some abusers will employ many of these behaviors, while others will not. It is not the number of abusive acts that define intimate partner abuse, but how and why the batterer chooses to use them and the impact they have on the victim. Please understand that these behaviors are intentional. You will hear me say very often during this presentation that domestic violence is a choice and it is learned. It's important to understand that. We have physical abuse. First thing I'll say about physical abuse is that many victims of domestic violence are never physically abused. That said, some ways that physical abuse manifests itself is through pinching, tickling, biting, slapping, grabbing, pushing, shoving, choking, covering her mouth so that she can't breathe, throwing her into objects, making her drink alcohol or take drugs, and then, of course, shooting or stabbing her and killing her. Emotional abuse is when the offender purposely tries to make his partner feel badly about herself, her ethnicity, her religion, the way she talks or how she looks. He humiliates her or embarrasses her in front of others. He laughs at her, shames her in front of others, disparages her opinions, undermines her ability as a wife, partner, and mother. He tells her she's crazy. He tries to make her think she's crazy, tries to make her think she's stupid by telling her that she's stupid. He makes all of the decisions, and of course, he does not trust her. Verbal abuse is very interesting because verbal abuse is not something that we see physically on a person, but there is internal damage and a wounded spirit that occurs when somebody keeps hearing criticisms about themselves, when the offender continually goes verbally ballistic for little or no reason. And sometimes verbal abuse isn't even obvious because not all words that are meant to hurt are ugly words. A verbal abuser can damage severely his partner's self-esteem while at the same time appearing to care deeply for her. Then we have isolation. This is very common. An abuser will not let his victim see family, friends, or neighbors. He controls everything that she does, controls who she sees, who she talks to, what she reads or watches on television. He insists on escorting her everywhere that she goes. He prevents her from going to church. He monitors her time. He makes her account for every moment of her time, restricts her use of the telephone, of the car, or of a computer. He is rude to her family and friends so that they will push away from her. He doesn't let her learn English if she is an immigrant, and he discourages friendships. Abusers will also coerce and threaten his victim, either by actually making the threat and carrying it out, or just threatening her. He may threaten to leave her. He may threaten to hurt himself. He may threaten to commit suicide. He threatens to jeopardize her citizenship or to jeopardize the citizenship of a family member. He threatens to take away her passport or the children's passports. He threatens to take or kidnap the children and has the means to be able to do so. And frequently he will make her do illegal things, allegedly, so that he doesn't carry out those threats. Abusers will also intimidate and bully his victim. He will make her afraid by looks, actions, and gestures. He will smash or destroy property. He will display weapons. He will use his anger to get her to do what he wants, and frequently he will use his size to bully her. He will use jealousy to justify his actions. Many abusers engage in sexual abuse and rape. Yes, there is marital rape and date rape. He will criticize her sexual performance. He will accuse her of infidelity. He will withhold sex to express his anger. He will force her to have sex after a physical beating. He will force her to have unprotected sex. He will drug her to force her to have sex with his friends. And in a case that I recently had, the abuser was forcing his victim to prostitute herself because his business was not doing very well. Abusers also stalk and harass their victims. He will follow her to work, to school, on shopping trips. He will text nasty messages to her or to her family and friends. He will frequently call her and hang her up. He will show up at her job to keep her from doing her work, and hopefully so that his hope is that she will lose her job. He will read her emails and texts that are addressed to her, and frequently he will do this even before she gets a chance to read her emails and texts. He will send private photos of her to her friends and family, and he will post her photos that she thought were private on the internet. Abusers also will track their victims' movements by GPS technology, through easy pass statements, by tracking the mileage that is put on a family automobile, and by digital devices. Recently, there was a report on NPR, the National Public Radio, that reported that 1 in 4 women who are stalked nationally are stalked by current or former partners through GPS technology, digital tools, or through social media, such as Facebook, which pinpoints the location of the post. Frequently, these tracking devices are placed without the victim's knowledge in her automobile, in her smartphone, or her tablet. I've heard of one situation where the offender even had the tracking devices embedded in her shoes. In mobile phones, an offender can install a hidden app that not only tracks where she is and where she went, but it can eavesdrop on conversations even when the phone is turned off. So she comes home from a session that she may have had with a therapist, and the abuser says to her, Why did you tell your therapist this? And she thought what she was speaking about was private. Or if she went to visit a family member, he may say, why did you tell your sister that? Or why did you go to the mall today when I told you never to leave the house? There is also economic and financial abuse, which is very common. There's a difference, you should know, between financial infidelity and financial abuse. Financial infidelity is when partners keep secrets about money from each other. Financial abuse is when one partner keeps the other ignorant about money, limits her access to bank accounts, and doles out money as if she were a child. He will deny her information about and access to family income and finances. He will put her on an allowance and make her account for every penny she spends, and he will punish her if she cannot do this. He will take and sell her belongings. He will put everything in his name. He will not pay household bills. He will take out credit cards in her name to ruin her credit rating. And he will threaten to end health benefits for her and their children. And frequently, he will spend money, family money, on drugs, alcohol, or gambling. Many abusers will use their children as a way to abuse the victim. He will criticize and make disparaging comments about the children's mother directly to the children or in front of the children. He will put children in the middle of fights between him and his partner. He will tell children that their mother doesn't love them. He will use the children to relay messages. He will harass during visitations. The abuser will blame everyone and everything but himself. She is the cause of the abuse. She is provoking it. He will blame his abusive behavior either on his drinking or his drugging, or he'll blame his behavior on her drinking or drugging. He may blame his actions on the stress of his work. Abusers will also minimize or deny the abuse. They will rationalize or make light of the abuse and describe an incident as a love pat when in fact it was a punch. And he will deny that an incident even happened. There also is a relationship between animal abuse and family violence. The abuser may hurt or injure or torture pets to intimidate or threaten his partner. Abusers frequently will use different behaviors at different times to keep his victim off guard. He may interrupt, change the topic, shout, not respond, give her the silent treatment, ignore her, and each of these things, he plays around with them because it plays with her mind. He will engage in behaviors that are damaging to the relationship, such as having affairs or flirting or talking about the attractiveness of others. He will not express his feelings. He will break promises. And many abusers will exercise gender authority or male dominance, and he will define women's roles, not only that of his partner, but also of his female children. He will demand obedience, and he will treat her like a servant and insist that her place is in the home. We're going to show you now the power and control wheel. An offender carefully selects abusive behaviors to gain and maintain control over his partner. As we said, domestic violence is about power and control. It is not about being out of control, nor is it about losing control. Battering causes more injuries to women than automobile accidents, muggings, and rapes combined, and 7.9 million paid workdays are lost each year because of domestic violence issues. This is equivalent to 32,000 full-time jobs. There is a cycle to the abuse. And this cycle of abuse starts out with early in the relationship, claiming that it is out of love and concern. The abuser creates an intense and possessive relationship that becomes serious very quickly. He tells her he loves her so much that he wants her to spend all her free time with him. He appears to idolize her. He immediately wants an exclusive relationship. Frequently, the victim doesn't view this behavior as being obsessive because she believes it shows how much he loves her and how much he cares for her. And because she loves him, she agrees not to see friends and family. She agrees not to go to church or continue working. She agrees to continue not going to school. Slowly, she becomes isolated from all outside interests and cut off from anyone who may be able to help her. After a while, something happens that brings on the first incident. Perhaps she says that she is meeting friends for lunch without him. He tells her she can't go. To stop her and to establish control over her, he does something to make her afraid. He may start off with giving her a look while he throws her favorite wedding present across the room. Or he places a bullet on the kitchen table. Not the gun, just a bullet. Or he lunges at her as if he's going to hit her, or yells and slams doors, or kicks her dog. Sometimes the first incident occurs when the woman first becomes pregnant, a time when he knows that it is a very, very vulnerable time. Now, for many women, this first act will cause her to end the relationship immediately. But for others, it is a shock. They'll say to themselves, this really didn't happen. Or they're embarrassed. How could this have happened to me? Many will blame themselves. He told me to have dinner ready at 6 p.m. and I didn't. And because she loves him, she believes his promise that he will never do it again. But it does happen again, and again, and again. After the acute incident, the honeymoon phase follows. He is remorseful. He cries. He vows his love, promises her never to repeat the abusive behavior. He blames the incident on a bad day at work, or being tired, or having had too much to drink when he went out with his friends after work. He brings her presents, flowers, and begs her forgiveness. Frequently, he will enlist family support, not just his, but hers. He promises to go to counseling or to NA or AA. He goes to church. She believes his promise and forgets the incident. But what happens is that there is tension building, because during this period she tries to keep the peace, agrees to everything, and tries to reassure him. She keeps the children quiet. She cooks his favorite meal. Sometimes she's silent, other times talkative. After a while, she withdraws. During this tension building phase, he becomes moody, sullen, and nitpicks. He yells, he drinks, he drugs, he threatens, destroys property, criticizes. He withdraws affection and isolates his partner further. And then there is another incident. With each subsequent incident, the abuse intensifies. A slap no longer is enough to keep control, so he breaks a rib. Name-calling no longer is enough, so he intimidates her, bullies and harasses her. As danger increases, she becomes more confused and afraid, and when there are visible bruises, she avoids family and friends, she skips work, school, and church. Slowly, she loses self-confidence and self-esteem. She becomes depressed, overwhelmed, she feels hopeless and trapped. Ultimately, she loses her ability to act independently, and as time passes, it is more difficult for her to resist or keep herself safe. She rarely will tell anybody what is happening, partly out of fear, partly out of shame, and partly because she doesn't think anyone will believe her. Frequently, the public persona of the offender is the perfect partner, the best father, a pillar of the community. In one case that I had, the offender was the psalti in the church. He was the chanter in their church. They were married for 30 years, and it was only after he beat her so badly and hospitalized her that people started saying, oh, well, gee, maybe what she was telling us really did happen. Ultimately, these abusive acts become the normal course of the relationship, and not only does it take less to bring on subsequent abusive behaviors, but their frequency and severity increases over time. And there's no guarantee that the original target of violence will remain the only person abused. There is a strong correlation between partner abuse and child abuse. Domestic violence has an impact on children. Boys who grow up in violent homes are likely to abuse their female partners as adults. Girls are likely to learn that violence against women is acceptable. Growing up in abusive households teaches children that controlling behaviors in intimate partner relationships are normal and appropriate. More than half of the men who abuse their female partners also physically abuse their children. As violence against the partner increases, so does the child abuse. There also is a correlation between men who abuse their partners and sexually abuse their female children. Frequently I hear people say, oh, well, he drinks and drugs, or she drinks and drugs. That's what's bringing this on. It's important to recognize that although a man may use his drinking or drugging as an excuse for his violence, neither his alcohol nor drug use causes the abuse. A man who batters and abuses alcohol or drugs has two different problems that must be addressed separately. If he stops drinking but does not get help for his abusive behaviors, he does not stop battering. He just becomes a sober batterer. Although a woman may drink or use drugs, neither her alcohol nor her drug use causes her partner's violence. She is abused because her partner chooses to abuse her so that he can gain and maintain control over her. Another thing that I frequently hear is, well, it's the economy that's doing it. And yes, a bad economy may make it worse, but it does not cause domestic violence. Job loss, foreclosures, rent arrears, debt, and other factors can contribute to higher stress levels, which can lead to increased violence. And it also, a weak economy limits a victim's options, making it more difficult for her to find work and become financially independent. But it is not the economy that is causing him to abuse. Victims of domestic violence feel helpless. And because of the way they present themselves and act, many battered women appear to others as weak and allowing the abuse to occur. In reality, though, they are actively trying to keep themselves safe by doing whatever is necessary to appease the batterer. Initially, these efforts are successful, and she believes that she can stop the violence. But over time, and as the violence escalates, she learns that there is nothing she can do to stop the violence. Many victims do not use other strategies to try to end the violence, such as police intervention or orders of protection, because they believe they are useless and would result in an increased threat to herself and her family. And unfortunately, she's right, because of women who are killed by their partners, 75% are killed after they have left the abusive relationship. I also hear people who say to me, well, it can't be so bad because she's continuing to have his children. The victim of domestic violence who continues to have the batterer's children frequently is criticized, and people say, well, why doesn't she use birth control? Why is she still having sex with him? We may assume that she has access to birth control, and many do not. Remember I said earlier that he controls health benefits frequently, or that she is voluntarily having sex with him. The reality is that many abused women have learned they can keep themselves and their children safe by complying with the abuser's sexual advances. Advances not made out of love, but rather his physical and perverse needs. We also tend to blame the victim. The general view is that children cannot protect themselves, and society is sympathetic towards children who are abused. But because many people believe that adult victims have options, they are likely to be blamed. Many people also think that the adult victim contributes to her victimization. that she is doing something to deserve or provoke it, or in a perverse way enjoys it. Views that generally are not made about victims of other forms of violence. Social approval also is more often given to a victim who resists rather than those who comply, even though resistance increases the likelihood of injury or death. And over time, these victim-blaming views become incorporated into the victim's understanding of who she is. Why do victims stay or return to an abusive relationship? The reasons are complex. Love, fear, shame, religion, children, geography, housing, cultural traditions, family pressures, lack of support, lack of resources, social norms, partner promises to change, or escalation of abuse. A victim stays because she loves her partner and wants the abuse to end, not the relationship. She stays because she is afraid no one will believe her. Her partner is well known and well loved by their community. She stays because her religion and her cultural traditions have taught her that marriage is a lifetime commitment. Her family is pressuring her. Her mother may say to her, "Nobody in our family has ever divorced. He's so good looking. He's a good provider. You'll never find anyone better." Her mother also may say to her, "Look, it's not so bad. I suffered for 30 plus years and I lived through it. So can you." She stays because she believes the abuse is her fault. Her partner has told her so often that she is the one who provokes his anger that she believes she really is the one to blame. And she stays because she doesn't speak English. She doesn't know there are services that may be able to help her. And if she does know that they exist, she isn't able to access them because of language barriers. A woman stays because she's afraid of losing her children to parental kidnapping or a custody battle. She has no money and no work history. She has no place to go. She left before and was stalked. She believes that staying is the best and perhaps only way to keep herself and her children safe, and because she fears physical injury and death. Why do men batter? Men batter, then these are reasons that men themselves have given because of their family history, because of their parental or their own substance abuse. And these were things that were revealed at a group for men who batter. And most men who attend groups for men who batter either attend because they're court ordered to, it's either that or go to jail, or a few of them will go voluntarily. Although these factors may play a role, not all men who have these life experiences become batterers. Some of the characteristics that women who are survivors of domestic violence have described as characteristics of their abusers were that they are very jealous and they lack trust. They need immediate gratification. They are very rigid. They feel sorry for themselves, and they have a sense of entitlement. They will deny responsibility. They didn't do anything. It's never their fault. Their attitude towards children and his partner, though he may say he wants children, they rarely come first. He expects the household to revolve around him. And if anyone steps out of line, his partner is to blame, and she deserves to be punished because she has stepped out of line. And he will isolate his partner. He will make claim that her family doesn't like him, her female friends and neighbors are interfering, or they're lesbians, and she shouldn't have anything to do with them. To increase his control over her, he doesn't allow her to see or speak with any family or friend. Can an abuser change? As a Christian, I should say yes, an abuser can change. However, I have to say realistically that once an abuser has had all of the power in a relationship, it can be difficult to change to a healthy relationship with equal power and compromises. With that said, an abuser can change if he is held accountable, if he accepts responsibility for his actions, and if he willingly chooses to change. Nevertheless, it's important to understand that some abusers will stop the physical violence, but will continue verbal and emotional abuse. At this point, I want to turn the presentation over to Father Chrysostomos Gilbert, who will discuss Orthodox Christian perspectives of domestic violence.
Thank you, Paulette. In the marriage service, when a couple comes forward to be married in the Orthodox Church, they stand together as equals. And the woman is asked in the service to imitate the Virgin Mary for the rest of her life, to be steadfast and a preserver in faith, to be obedient to God, and to be a shining example of love, hope, and faith for her family. But the man is also asked to imitate Christ, to be humble, kind, compassionate, merciful, and understanding. He should be a living example of a true Christian manhood and fatherhood. The woman and man are crowned as king and queen of their own family, and therefore should treat each other with love, dignity, and respect, as they are now one, singular, unique, and the exclusive of the other. There is a point, however, in the epistle that is read during the wedding service of St. Paul to the Ephesians, which is read, that states, "And let the wife see that she respects her husband." Now, when an Orthodox Christian wedding reaches this point, and when this quote is read, there are some men who look at their wives as if to say, "Remember those words, I'm the boss." Unfortunately, some women have bought into that thinking and become more susceptible to accepting abuse, beatings, and battering, and with no recourse. They often say that they have to keep peace in the family and endure their husband's wrath. They must remember, however, that while Christ and the church do ask that we endure sufferings as Christians, neither Christ nor the church wants anyone to be a victim. Each of us needs to read the statement that is also found in Ephesians 5, just a few moments before the preceding epistle. It refers directly to the man's role in marriage. Husbands, love your wives, just as Christ also loved the church, and he gave himself up for her, that he may sanctify and cleanse her with the washing of water by the word, that he might present her to himself a glorious church, not having spot or wrinkle or any such thing, but that she should be holy and without blemish. So husbands ought to love their wives as their own bodies. He who loves his wife loves himself. In other words, when the husband loves his wife to the extent that he is willing to make any sacrifice for her, when he treats her with love, dignity, honor, and respect, presenting her without bruises or blemishes, but whole, complete, loved, admired, adored, and cherished, is deemed by virtue of the position she holds as his wife, as his other self, as his completion of himself, then she should respect him in return. In this same epistle to the Ephesians, St. Paul writes, "Do not grieve the Holy Spirit of God, by whom we're sealed for the day of redemption. Let all bitterness, wrath, anger, yelling, and evil speaking be put away from you with all malice. And be kind to one another, tender-hearted, forgiving one another, even as God in Christ forgave you. Therefore be imitators of God as dear children, and walk in love as Christ also has loved us, and given himself for us. But fornication and all uncleanness and covetousness, let it not even be named among you, neither filthiness, nor foolish talking which are not fitting, but have no fellowship with the fruitful works of darkness, but rather expose them." The Bible itself tells the battered woman that one sure way to overcome the brutality of an abused husband is by exposing him, by telling someone. Psalm 55 can be interpreted to convey the betrayal of the spouse who abuses. "For it is not the enemy who reproaches me, then I could bear it. For it is the one who hates me who has exalted himself against me. Then I could hide from him. But it was you, my equal, My companion and my acquaintance, we took sweet counsel together and walked in the house of God in the assembly. The shock of the betrayal is more than overwhelming. It tears at the sacred union of husband and wife. Mutual trust, faith, and confidence are central to the success of a marriage. The betrayal of abuse can destroy a marriage. What happened to the sweet counsel? The Christian commitment of a wife can cause her great distress as well as confusion. What should she do? Will she be going against the church by telling on her husband? Will she be unfaithful to her vows and the sacred commitment she made to him before God? Here we see the victimizing herself again, placing blame where it doesn't belong. She has to return and redirect the blame and realize that it is the abuser who is going against the church. It is the abuser who is unfaithful to his sacred vows. It is the abuser who renounces his sacred commitment to her. It is the abuser who is wrong, not she. We have several dispelling distortions and misinterpretations. We hear marriage is a lifetime commitment. While there is no question that we should enter marriage with the assumption that it will last for life, no victim should be made to believe that our church values the sanctity of marriage over the sanctity of her life. For all intent and purposes, the husband, by choosing to engage in abusive behaviors and choosing not to stop, has already ended the life of a marriage. We also hear many times, the husband is the head of the household. Many people's understandings of the husband's headship and thus submission of the wife is based on their own interpretation and partial reading of St. Paul's letter to the Ephesians that we just read. In reality, St. Paul states that in Christ there is neither male nor female, since you are all one in Christ. The woman's role is to keep the family together, we hear. Well, since the Orthodox marriage ceremony promotes a mutuality of commitment and a mutuality of respect, both partners, not just the wife, not just the husband, are responsible for the family's well-being. Then we have the aspect of keeping secrets. Many believe that disclosure is a betrayal of the entire family. Many also believe that revealing problems, these so-called secrets, they will be the subject of community-wide gossip. As a result, many of our domestic violence victims would rather feel the pain than the shame. Our abused women can be helped to recognize that reporting a crime, which is exactly what domestic violence is neither shameful nor betrayal. Abuse should not be kept a secret, but must be exposed and opposed. Family pressures leading to tolerating the abuse. We see family, gender, and societal roles are ever changing. What was believed to be the norm and may have worked 25 or 50 or 75 years ago no longer has to be what is. Women have more options and are more independent than ever before. As importantly, they have the right to a peaceful and safe life. A victim's assumption that she has no control over her life is a bad assumption. While the victim may believe she has no control over her life, she can be helped to recognize that she has not been sitting back passively, allowing the abuse to occur. Rather, she can be helped to understand that she has actively developed the coping and survival skills to manage the abuser in a way that will keep herself and her children as safe as possible. Then we have revenge, an assumption that a victim of domestic violence seeks revenge. There is a huge difference between revenge and justice. The definition of revenge is to be spiteful, to retaliate, to inflict punishment in return for an injury or insult. The definition of justice is actually to seek a moral, righteous, and fair and equitable treatment. Prayer is the most hurtful advice a member of the clergy or a faithful person can give a victim, other than not believing her. Is to tell her to pray, pray harder, pray longer, and more often in a way that makes her think we are telling her that praying will end the abuse. While praying will help a victim find the inner strength to cope with the difficult times, prayer will not stop the abuse. Only the batterer can stop the abuse. Prayer gives us the strength to face what is before us and to help us decide what we are willing or not willing to do. But prayer, again, will not stop the abuse. We pray for peace in the world at every liturgy, yet we cannot regulate the lack of peace found in people's hearts. A victim's prayers, though always meaningful, cannot stop the abuser from abusing her. Concrete, tangible help is needed. Someone must be told, and the battered woman must seek help from others. We are asked to forgive our enemies, but forgiveness never includes believing we must tolerate or accept abuse from anyone. No victim should be made to believe that turning the other cheek or practicing patience means she must endure or to accept the abuse. If we suggest to a victim of domestic violence that she forgive her batterer, it should be with the understanding that the act of forgiveness will help her relieve her own negative feelings towards the abuser. Forgiveness does not mean she removes responsibility for the abuse, nor does it mean that she or we no longer condemn his actions. The abusive actions must continue to be condemned, and the abuser must continue to be held responsible for these wrongful actions. Each of us is a valuable, important, significant person of immeasurable worth to God and to all those who truly love us. God doesn't just let things happen to us. It is not God's will to see anyone mistreated with abuse. God wants us to love one another with understanding, compassion, mercy, dignity, and respect. Abuse is devoid of all these qualities. The role of a priest is to provide spiritual counseling, whether to a victim of an intimate partner abuse or to the offender. However, this is not and should not be interpreted as couples counseling or marriage counseling. Counseling sessions separately and on an individual basis may prove helpful in resolving their problems. However, no couple counseling, because it could prove detrimental to the victim, since anything she may say will be used against her once they go home. The abuser would be acting out his need to hold power and control over his spouse if he heard everything that was said in a counseling session. What a priest needs to do is to encourage the abuser to face and accept responsibility for his actions as an abusive perpetrator. The priest must strive to make the abuser understand that he is committing a criminal act, make him aware of the seriousness of his actions, make him understand that it is he who is at fault and that it is his choices that are making him abuse. Make him understand that he must seek help or else he will never overcome these faults and become healed. If he refuses to seek counseling, or if he refuses to accept that he has a problem, then the wife may have to seek a separation for a time to help him understand the seriousness of his situation. If there is still no improvement or desire to resolve his problems, then unfortunately the wife may have to seek permanent separation or even divorce. For the church and the couple, divorce is always undesirable, but sometimes it is completely unavoidable. If a man abuses his partner and not to stop these abusive behaviors, hasn't he in reality already ended the marriage? When a woman fears for her life and that of her children, then she must make some serious decisions. There are many types of abuse: verbal, emotional, and physical. But spiritual abuse can be brought on by all of these and can destroy the spiritual life of a person. Different concepts of spiritual abuse: a victim may believe that God is punishing her for something that she did or thinks that she did. The victim may believe that she is being abused because she hasn't prayed long enough or hard enough. The victim may believe that even with all of her prayers, God has abandoned her. but one must know that none of these are even true. A significant way a member of the clergy can help a victim through her spiritual crisis is by ensuring her that she understands that God has neither abandoned her nor is he punishing her. She needs to hear that it is the abuser who is letting the violence occur, not God, and that it is the batterer who is responsible for his behavior. Everyone needs to be more informed concerning the signs of the abuse, as well as how to seek help for those who are victims of abuse. Don't stand up for the abuser. You only hurt him and his family all the more. Clergy need to stand up for the victim. Listen to her, believe her, and take her to a knowledgeable and concerned psychologist, social worker, or domestic violence advocate as soon as you possibly are able. The clergy should remain available to provide her with spiritual support, to pray with her, to listen, to understand, to be compassionate and non-judgmental. Their role is to be there for the person who trusts them and needs their help.
Two questions came up as Father Chrysostomos was speaking. One is, does domestic violence always escalate? By virtue of its name, domestic violence, yes, it not only escalates, but it also intensifies. And how does an abused person know when the line has been crossed into abuse? If she finds that he is being overly jealous, and there is no reason to be jealous, if he starts threatening her, if he starts exhibiting the behaviors, that is when she should begin to understand that the line has been crossed. Frequently, though, victims do not realize that they are being victims of abuse. I've heard many women say that it's only after watching a TV movie about domestic violence that they suddenly realize, oh my God, that's me. So one of the things that you can do is call the the National Domestic Violence Hotline, which operates 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. A victim can speak with the domestic violence advocate about her relationship, and the advocate will help her determine whether or not they may be in an abusive relationship. If other people have questions, please type them in and we'll try to answer as many as we can. The next question that was asked was, what are some ways in which those who are abused present publicly? And that actually is the next part of our presentation. How to identify someone who is being abused. A victim of abuse will seem afraid or anxious to please her partner. She will go along with everything that the partner says and does. She will check in often with her. She will receive frequent harassing phone calls from her partner, and she will talk about her partner's temper, jealousy, or possessiveness. A victim of physical abuse will have frequent injuries with the excuse they were accidents. Although she may have been a regular churchgoer, she has stopped attending or only attends infrequently. She frequently may miss work, school, or social occasions without explanation. And she may dress in clothing designed to hide bruises or scars, such as wearing long sleeves in the summer or sunglasses indoors. Many victims of physical abuse will also be missing teeth because they have been punched in the mouth. A victim who is isolated will rarely go out in public without her partner. She will not be able to make phone calls or receive texts or emails. She will have limited access to the internet, the family computer. She will have limited access or no access to the family car. She will have low self-esteem even if she used to be confident. She will show major personality changes. She used to be outgoing and has become withdrawn. She is not able to invite friends to her home, although she used to do this regularly. And frequently the victim who is isolated will be depressed, anxious, or suicidal. A victim of financial abuse will have limited access to money or credit cards. She will worry excessively about how her partner will react to what are commonly thought of as simple everyday purchases. If you think someone is being abused, it's important to remember that you can't rescue her, and neither is there any single way to help her, no single correct way. The important thing is for you to try. Give yourself and the woman you care about some time to make the changes. The hardest part of talking to an abused woman is getting started. Because a controlling partner lays all the blame on her, a woman is likely to hear any questions about her actions or her background or her personal life as accusations, and such questions will silence her. So it is important to be open, non-judgmental, and to maintain confidentiality. If she wants to talk but can't get started, some of the ways that you may be able to get her started is by talking about what the controlling partner is doing rather than other ways to approach it, and also asking her how she feels about it, what she feels. Such as, what's it like at home for you? Saying, everyone in a relationship has arguments with their partner, but let me ask you, what happens when you and your partner disagree or argue? How does your partner handle things when he doesn't get his way? What does he do? Are you ever scared of him? Does he threaten you? Does he put you down, call you names? You also can help a woman feel safe by assuring her that you will keep her story confidential, and then of course doing so. When she tells you her story, listen attentively, don't interrupt, be careful of your facial expressions or your body language, don't let them convey doubt or judgment of what she's saying. And when she is finished, ask, how can I help? Give her control. That's one of the things that she has lost in the relationship, control over her life and control over the relationship. By us saying, how can I help? What's important to you? It's giving her back some of the control. Let her know that you care and that there are people and agencies that want to assist her. She may not know that there are thousands of other women experiencing abuse and that there are special shelters, services, and laws to help her. Make it clear to her that it is her partner who has a problem, that she cannot fix it, nor can she stop the abuse no matter how much she wants or how hard she tries. If she refuses to talk to you today or says no to your offer of additional help, she has her reasons. Express your concern for her anyway. Tell her that emotional abuse and physical abuse are wrong, that she has the right to be safe, and assure her that you will stand by, ready to talk to her if she asks. As Father Chrysostomos said, do not suggest couple counseling, mediation, or communication workshops, nor should you confront the abuser. Letting the abuser know that you are aware of his behavior could endanger the victim or her children. Be prepared to refer her to a local domestic violence program if she wants and when she is ready. The National Domestic Violence Hotline, 1-800-799-SAFE, is also something that you can call to find out local resources within your own communities. You also can give her this phone number, write it on a little slip of paper and hand it to her and say, when you're ready, it's a 24/7 service through which advocates are available to speak to her anonymously and confidentially about the abuse. The advocates can help her decide what she is willing to do, and they can help her develop a safety plan, a personalized safety plan. Again, that number is 1-800-799-SAFE, and the SAFE, S-A-F-E, is 7233. If a woman confides in you that she is being abused, believe her. She's not going to lie about the abuse. Many controllers are so charming and gracious to outsiders that what you see of his behavior may deceive you. Acknowledge and support her for talking to her. Let her know you consider her feelings normal and reasonable. Let her lead the conversation. You may say, how can I help you? But don't expect her to have answers the first time she talks. She needs you to be a good listener. And if she asks you to do anything within reason, do it. But that said, if she asks you to do something that you cannot do, or that you don't want to do, or that you're not comfortable doing, say so. Talk it over with her and try to find another way of meeting the particular need she presented, or another thing that you can do to help. Be careful not to impose your ideas of help on her. One of the worst things that anybody can say to a victim is, why are you still there? Why didn't you leave? Why don't you leave? That's what I would do. There are many reasons, as we discussed earlier, why she still is in the relationship. Tell her that you care about her and her safety, and don't blame her for the abuse. Through the domestic violence hotline, you can help her find resources in the community for protection, advocacy, or support. But if she is in immediate danger, call 911 or the police. Always encourage her to get more support and information. What we've recently did through National Philoptochos is we made up informational flyers that we've asked each of the churches to post in the women's room of the churches, and also little palm cards that are the size of a postcard that have information on both sides of, it's not love if your partner, and then we list things like controls you, criticizes you, and then on the reverse side it says ways to stay safe. And this also, where we gave stacks to each of the churches, again, that we hope people will leave in their women's rooms or in safe places in the church, so that somebody who either is being victimized and knows it or thinks she may be can take one and have the information for future use for when she is ready. What we need to do is to acknowledge and set aside our own cultural and personal biases. As a community, we need to reach out to women. We need to recognize and help her through her spiritual crisis so that she doesn't feel that God has either abandoned her or is punishing her. It's important for us to have the information available to refer her to local programs so that when she is ready, she knows where she can turn. And then in terms of us, it's important for us to work cooperatively with those local programs and resources and the police department to ensure that they understand our cultures and traditions. And as a community, perhaps first and foremost, we need to help her understand that to expose and oppose is exactly what we should be doing. Not everyone can or should be expected to be all things to all people. So we are providing you with a laundry list of easy to hard actions that you can consider taking in your own community and that fit into your life, your available time, and your comfort zone. Some are easy, like posting the phone number of the domestic violence hotline in the women's rooms of your church, or sponsoring a presentation in your community by inviting a speaker from a local program to educate and inform your community about the issue. Other actions are a little more difficult, like offering space in your church at no cost for a weekly or monthly support group of survivors of domestic violence, or as a location for supervised visitation sites when parents need to visit safely with their children. You will not be asked to lead the groups or supervise the visit. All you are doing is offering space within your church. Yet other things are much harder and ask that you volunteer your time and your talents. The bottom line is that you don't even have to do anything. Even just becoming more informed about intimate partner abuse helps victims become survivors. We need to publicize local resources. We need to post and distribute literature. One of the things that we suggest is, rather than have a bulletin board that just focuses on domestic violence, have a women's issues bulletin board where you provide information about different women's issues, heart health, breast cancer, ovarian cancer, and then somewhere along the line you include information about intimate partner abuse and where somebody can go for help. This way, if a woman who is being abused stops to read the bulletin board, her abuser isn't saying, aha, she's looking up stuff for domestic violence. He's not going to know what she's actually looking for, and she could say, no, I'm interested in heart health. I'm interested in information about breast cancer. Sponsor forums to promote an awareness of domestic violence. You can contact your state's coalition against domestic violence, your police department, or courts, who will be available to discuss topics such as the psychological, emotional, the economic and physical behaviors, safety planning for victims and their children, the services that are available, and legal aspects, and how to obtain orders of protection and what to expect from them. Orders of protection are not the end-all in domestic violence. I wish they were, but they really aren't. We also suggest that you hold roundtable discussions and ecumenical town meetings to identify and examine and reframe some of the cultural attitudes and religious beliefs, not only as Orthodox Christians, but as a community, that influence our understanding of domestic violence and that may appear to ignore or condone domestic violence. We also suggest that you ask your priest to speak out against domestic violence. It is extremely powerful when a victim hears the words expose and oppose spoken in your church. October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. Ask your priest to speak out to your parish during the month of October. And because prevention is as important as recognizing abuse, we recommend that you start young. Organize forums on teen dating relationships and programs that promote and teach nonviolent behaviors. With youth and parent groups in your church, sponsor programs, panel discussions on issues of teen dating relationships, the importance of respect, equality, and compromise, on substance use and abuse, on bullying, cyberbullying, and digital abuse, how to identify and avoid dangerous relationships and situations. We said the relationship becomes intense very, very quickly. That's a flag. He wants to spend all his time with her. He wants her to spend all of her time with him. That's another flag. Those are the kinds of things that can be told to teens, that this is not love, this is controlling behavior. You can also have discussions about anger management, impulse control, conflict resolution, and fair fighting. That's a very important one, fair fighting. You can contact local schools, your local police, and domestic violence programs for speakers, and ask members of your youth groups to participate in these panel discussions about their and their friends' experiences with these issues. You want to do more? Be trained to be an on-call advocate. Contact local programs, police department, whatever, and find out what kinds of volunteers they may need. Can you serve as an interpreter? Can you help them interpret not only language, but interpret your cultural and religious traditions that may be barriers to a victim's ability to access or remain in services so that the program's efforts are as effective as possible? Although the elements of abuse are universal, a person's cultural background influences how she will deal with abuse. So this cultural interpretation is very important to give to local domestic violence programs. Can you periodically offer to babysit or pick up school-aged children so that a woman who is ready to apply for services can actually go without worrying about what's going to happen to her children, or if she wants to take out a restraining order? Can you periodically accompany someone to court, not to say anything, but just to be there in support of her? Very powerful if a victim of domestic violence is taking court action, legal action against her abuser, and there are 10 women from the community sitting in the court. They don't have to say anything. They are just there supporting her. Can you offer periodically to pick up a woman's children from school, not only so that she can apply for different services, but for anything that she may need? Can you also tutor children who are in a domestic violence family shelter? Can you collect and distribute books and clothing for children and adults in a shelter? Can you provide job training, career counseling, or resume writing information classes to such women? Are you able to pick up a woman, perhaps someone who used to go to church regularly but no longer does, and offer to take her to church? Can you serve on the program's board of directors? Each of these programs, the domestic violence programs, will train volunteers about domestic violence issues so that if you do choose to do any of these, you know what to expect and you will be able to deal with the different issues that arise. Don't expect to walk in as an expert, because that's not going to happen. I can't even walk in as an expert because there are just certain discrete things that the shelter knows or that the program knows that I have not come across. So I would go through that training myself. You can find out what it is and how you can help and whether or not, and think about whether or not you're willing to try. Just make a call and say, I'm thinking about this. What are the opportunities that are available to me? And also remember that volunteering in any of these ways is not a lifetime commitment. It doesn't even have to be on a weekly basis or even on a monthly basis. It could be a one-shot deal. If your circumstances change, or you no longer have the time or inclination to continue, and keep this in mind, if dealing with domestic violence issues becomes too difficult for you personally, no one will criticize you if you stop. You need to understand what you're able to take. Sometimes we absorb so much of the horrors of domestic violence that we need to know when we need to step back. So you know yourselves, if you do any of these, keep that in mind. We have quite a bit of literature available at the Greek Orthodox Ladies Philoptochos Society. For those of you who have downloaded or who have viewed the PowerPoint, the last page provides you with literature that we have. A one-page fact sheet on intimate partner abuse, a information sheet that starts out with does your partner, and it's a checklist of behaviors. There's also something that's very important, recommendations from Safe Horizon in New York City about how to develop a personalized safety plan. And this is something that you can do with the woman you think is being abused or you know is being abused. Let her develop a personalized safety plan, such as what's the safest door if she needs to leave quickly? Do her children know how to call 911? Simple kinds of things like that. If she and her partner start getting into a fight, can she get out of the kitchen because that's where the knives are? Or can she get out of the bathroom because usually there's only one way in and out of the bathroom, and that's not safe for her? The other literature that we have or some of the things that we went over today, what to say to a woman you think is being abused, what to do when a woman confides in you. Then we have other fact sheets on elder abuse, on domestic violence in the workplace, how money is used as a weapon in relationships, the teen dating relationships, the equality wheel, and a teen power and control wheel. So if you are interested in receiving any of these fact sheets and information, please either email me at socialwork@philoptochos.org or telephone me. The number is 212-977-7782. You also may call me. I'm not 24 hours, 7 days a week, so please just keep that in mind. But you also may call me if you have questions yourself about your own relationships, and if you do not want to make the call to the 24-hour hotline, but you'd rather speak to somebody who is an Orthodox Christian, please feel free to give me a call. If you leave a message, but just leave your name. You can just leave a first name and your telephone number, but also let me know when is a safe time for me to call you back. If you are being victimized, that's very important. When is it safe for me to call you? And if I do call you, I will not say that I am a social worker calling about domestic violence. I will say something about I am calling from the church about some information that we are distributing, or something very neutral, so that if a message is left and your partner retrieves the message, he has no idea why I'm calling you. Would you care to add anything?
You said it perfectly.
Let's see. Do we have some more time, Melissa? How are we doing? You're on mute.
You're still on mute.
Okay, one of the questions is, how can you maintain confidentiality if you believe someone's life may be in danger, especially if she is not willing to get help? You maintain confidentiality by not telling anybody that you think someone's life is in danger. You speak directly to her and you tell her that you're concerned about her safety. You don't have to say, hey, honey, you're being a victim of domestic violence and what's the matter with you? You say, I'm concerned about you. It seems to me that you may be having some issues that I may be able to help you with. But you do not, under any circumstance, reveal this to anybody else. Or, as I said, you also can maintain confidentiality by giving her my phone number or the phone number of the domestic violence hotline. Let's see. Oh, we have a thank you for somebody who's been divorced for many years and feels guilty about this. Please don't feel guilty, because it was not your fault. You had nothing to do with the abuse. You are not to blame. You have and you had a right to be safe. Closing remarks?
She wants. Melissa, were you going to say something? We can't hear you.
We can't hear you, Melissa.
Okay.
There you go.
Sorry, I was having some issues with my mute thing. I just want to say thank you both so much for covering this really important topic. For those of you listening, thank you for being here today. And as we said, about a week from now, we will put this up on our YouTube, on the Archdiocese YouTube channel, and we'll let everyone know via Facebook and our listserv. So if you like us on Facebook, or if you sign up for our listserv via our website, family.goarch.org, then you will be informed once it goes up. And we ask you to share this with other people so they can take this valuable information with them. There were a lot of questions, and we didn't get to them all, but I know that that they asked us to save all the questions and who sent them, so that they will go through the questions. If they didn't get to answer you live here today, they will respond to you. So just be patient with them on that. I also wanted to let everyone know that next month we will be having our webinar on March 24th at 2:30, and it'll be a topic of preparing your family for Holy Week, and we're going to have a variety of different presenters sharing what they've done with their family and stuff. So we're looking forward to hopefully seeing you all there. Again, thank you to Leadership 100 and faithful stewards of our Archdiocese who make programs like these possible, and a blessed Lent to you all. Thank you.